Que se oiga, que se oiga. Ya mero, ya mero. It's almost time. Hang in there, okay? The best is yet to come. And she said, you better start with manitos. So you know what I'm going to talk about in a minute. Boy, thank you so much for hanging in there, but the best is yet to come. It is my great honor and pleasure to introduce this year's CABE 2024 opening keynote, Consuelo Castillo Kickbush. Ahí está atrás esperando, eh? She has an amazing story, but let me tell you a little bit about her story. She was born and raised in a little town by the border in Laredo, Texas. Consuelo conquered the challenge of poverty, sound familiar? Discrimination, illiteracy, but she didn't give up. She was raised without any wealth. How many of us had that experience, right? We came here to work hard and be successful. But for her, her immigrant parents were key because without wealth, they had the following, which is what we are proud of: culture, tradition, values, and yes, folks, faith. The values Consuelo learned as a child were reinforced throughout her career in the United States military. Yes, she's a veteran. Do we have any veterans in the audience? Please stand and be recognized. I know Ralph, right over here, served in the military. We are free because of you guys. Muchísimas gracias. After graduating from Hardin-Simons University, Consuelo entered the U.S. Army. As an officer, she served for 2 decades. I see her and I just get out of the way. During the time, she broke barriers and set records when she became the highest ranking Mexican-American woman in the combat support. Get this. She was out there kicking butt. Field of the U.S. Army is her #1 dedication. She was dedicated to the Army. She was also selected to assume command post. Consuelo disrupted and advanced her career by deciding, though, after a while to retire. She is one that I could say, le gusta patear el panal, ¿verdad? ¿Ya vieron la película Radical? Kick the hornet's nest, right? Let's make some noise, right? She chose instead to honor her mother's dying wish for 2 reasons: to return her to her roots, becoming a community leader. And every time I see her at CABE, Raul, bring me. I want to talk to the parents, to the teachers, and everybody. So in 1996, Consuelo Castillo founded the Human Development Company, Education Achievement Services, EAS Incorporated, to fulfill her mission of preparing tomorrow's leaders. Isn't that what we're all about? We want to prepare all the leaders out in the audience, because I know you're all leading in your community. And through her grassroots leadership, here she is to talk to all of you. So I know that you're going to be inspired, motivated tonight by Consuelo's passion to connection to her community. She's funny, but she's also going to connect you. Please, audience, join me and welcome me in providing a great warm welcome from CABE to the stage. Consuelo Kickbush, come on up here. Consuelo, bienvenida. Manita.
Bendito sea Dios. Muy buenas tardes. Orgullosamente les saludo primeramente en el lenguaje que heredé de mis lindos padres, siendo orgullosamente hija de migrantes de México. Thank you. I also learned pretty English, because being multilingual in the world of the global, being a neighborhood, Pues valemos por más. And so we should get paid more. But it's so wonderful to recognize that we're here together to celebrate humanity. To our Vietnamese brothers who just got honored, my brother served during Vietnam for that reason, for democracy. And to have us share the stage means that we are human beings being human together at last. Felicidades, congratulations to our Vietnamese brothers. I shared with Dr. Maldonado that to make sure he said that we were manitos. And you know, PhD back in my barrio, that means Pachuco, highly developed. And I know I don't mean that in a bad way, I mean that in a great way, right? To finally get the papelitos, you know, to finally. And tonight, I want to especially take a moment of quiet to dedicate these humble words to the unaccompanied children. I visit with them from New York to Chicago to Nebraska. Some of them so small. So the next time you go to an airport and you see a child with a brown envelope, it may not even have a coat. They're scared, they're nervous, and they're unaccompanied. Think about that for a second. Remember your journey? You had familia. But in this moment, there's a plane, all wheels up, taking a lonely child to a world that may or may not receive them. And it is you, that EL teacher, that's coming into your classroom. Don't forget that the greatest language we have, it's not about letters or periods, it's a language of love. Adelante. You know, I asked my 86-year-old brother to pray for me today. Y le dije, oye, hermanito, imagínate, vato. We've come a long way. And he said, ay, Dios mío. And you know, typical older brother, pórtate bien. And I said, I can't do that. That's why you're the pastor in the family. And you know, he's still a beautiful brother, and he said, make sure que te bañaste. I'm like, brother, I think I know how to do that by now. And he said, estoy aquí en Walmart, porque hay un sale. Le dije, no, dice que te sales. He said, is that what it means? Le dije, te sales. He said, Chelo, I'm going to pull over. I'm going to pray with you, manita, that you stay grounded, that you realize that mommy, papi, how they wish they could see this day. And so in honor of all your familias, I want to start by giving them my respect. And think about your familia, whether they're with you today or they live in your heart. Madre, jefa, I love you. I miss you. I just don't miss your chancla. You could have just retired it. I really don't even miss your mirada. I miss you, jefa, and I thank you. I'll tell the rest of your story because that is why I'm on stage. You told me to come home. And in your words, ayúdale a los niños, hija. Jefe, I miss you, Apá. Why you love my mother, I don't know. But I thank you for teaching me to love, to forgive, to celebrate. My dad was the peacemaker of la familia. There were 10 of us. My abuelo. And my dad never, ever, ever had a bad day. Nunca. He always made fun of everything. And you know, there were so many of us kids. He tried to, always spend time with us, try to make sure we were on his radar. But I'll never forget some of the craziest things my dad would tell me. He'd say, mija, mande, ya no hay moscas. I go, what? Fíjate, no hay moscas. I said, Dad, why are you interested in flies? Why is that? He said, no. Yo te voy a decir por qué. I go, why, Apá? Dice, porque le están dando una pastilla para que ya no tengan más moscas. I go, Dad, are you crazy? And he would say, mira, hay menos moscas y menos pulgas. And I said, Dad, why do you always have to make fun of everything? He said, la vida, hija, nos va a dar golpes. Y tú vas a verlos y sentirlos. Cuando primero te digan que no eres como los demás. You know, such wisdom from a man that was preparing me for life's punches. He said, don't let them get to you, because they're going to see you. They're going to see that you're different, that you're not like them. I didn't know who he was talking about, but he was trying to prepare me for my first year in school. And my dad loved America. He loved este país. And he could never, ever say it sitting down. Era un hombre de tanto respeto a Estados Unidos. He would always stand up. And he would say, no, es que en América, hija. And I thought, wow, that must be a cool place. I used to think, wow, it must be like Disneyland. But I never understood this idea of gratitude when you're a kid and you're living in the barrio and the streets are unpaved and somebody dies that shouldn't have died. You know, the drug deal that didn't go well. And at the same time, there was the balance to our lives. The music at night, the viejos that would take the guitarra, your mother that would volunteer you to sing when you couldn't even do it. And the way the whole community would watch over you, ¿verdad? There's a word for that, metiches. But we belong to this sort of idea that we're each other's keeper. And if you're that EL teacher, you know that your job is like 10 different other jobs, true or not true? Oh, Miss Garcia, we need you in the front desk. And yes, in the front office, because you can speak. I'm like, ¿de veras? ¿Y tú no tienes boca? Oh, Miss Garcia, we need you over here. We have a situation. How many of you have been there? And then when you tell the people that are supposedly in HR, well, I had 9 situations this month. Is my check going to include that? Oh, no, Miss Garcia, we're just happy that you're with us. So you know that somewhere out there, the world wants you to be everything to everybody. And that's why CABE is your sanctuary. CABE, you don't have to be any of those things. You can listen to the mariachis, you can drink all the tequila, and just make sure it's not on Facebook. You come because you want to know and reminded that you are special. You are unique. And in many districts, because I've been to the little tiny ones, you're it. There's no one else but you. So when I think about my dad, y me dice, vas a ir a la escuela, hija, y vas a aprender inglés. And I only knew one word because, you hang out. And I said, sí, papá, me enseñaron que allá afuera, con que diga, ok, no me hace nada. I didn't understand that this is like a universal word, okay. Well, I learned it. So here I am, I'm in school. No, ni hablo ni jota de inglés. But, I'm smart. I'm street smart. So I picked on the kid that was speaking English or Spanish. It's called Spanglish. And I just heard 2 Latina professors. I don't know if you're here. They're the authors of the book En Comunidad. I love you, mija, because you finally made me look smart. It's called translanguaging. Ay, se oye bien fufu. Muchas gracias. En mi casa, it was called Tex-Mex. Órale, éntrale al toro. So I looked at Ida, and Ida was translanguaging. It sounds better, ¿verdad? Legitimate. And I noticed Ida had been raised by mostly English-speaking parents, but her grandmother was a big part of her life. Y pues there I go. I go to first grade. And my dad says, usted, acuérdese. I go, okay. Usted es el sueño americano. Okay. So I figured somebody got the memo. And I go to school, and it was like being in a tunnel. That's what so many EL children like me feel like. It's a dark place. Everybody's making noises. You don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. You're scared. And then all of a sudden, these 2 teachers were in front of us. I had befriended Ida. And the way I convinced Ida is through what we do in the barrio. We negotiate. Some people call it bribery. It sounds better like translanguaging. So we entered negotiations y le dije, oye, tú hablas el English. And she was so cute, she goes, yes, I do. Y le dije, mira, órale, tú y yo, tú me ayudas, And she goes, okay. And yo no sabía if she knew or not, but this is what we mean being in a conversation. I go, okay. And then I said, ¿qué es eso? And she had a lunchbox. It's a beautiful pink lunchbox. How do you know they made those things? And I said, ábrelo. She opened it, and it was a white bread with ham. I said, eso es malo. That's not good food. She said, why are you so mean? I said, ay, Dios mío, bendito sea Dios. I said, mira, yo te voy a ayudar. See, negotiation. So when you see a child as EL is in the classroom and they're talking sideways and they're talking in a group, they're not cheating people, they're collaborating. Do you get it? It's consensus building. All you linear analytical types. They're all over the place because they're creative and innovative. So I said to her, Mira, I opened my brown bag and I gave her a taco. Papas con huevo, or as my daddy would ask me in the mornings, ¿qué quieres? Papas con huevo or huevos con papas? That was the menu. And she ate my taco, evaporated it, and there I saw my lunch just disappear. But I'm going to negotiate. Dije, mira, no te comas eso. Pero mañana, tú me ayudas con el English. And she goes, mañana. Yes, mañana. And she stopped me. She said, mañana, 2 tacos. Well, Ida retired after a 40-year career as a bilingual ed teacher. She's still on Weight Watchers today. And she still says to me, qué desgraciada. You are still telling our business from our first grade. Le digo, órale. And le digo, okay. Well, so there's these 2 teachers. Ida's now my window. And I love you teachers. I love you. You all smell really good. My teacher didn't smell, my mommy didn't smell like you. She smelled like cilantro and ajo every day. So I'm talking to Ida, who's my new translator. And the teacher said to the other teacher, oh my God, here they come. Le dije, ¿qué dijo? And Ida, in her translanguaging, said, tu nombre, tu casa. Dije, ¿cómo? And then the other one said to the other teacher, oh God, I just wish they'd go home. And that's all Ida picked up. Something about my house. And I didn't know hate speech. I didn't understand discrimination. I didn't understand classism. I didn't understand that a teacher could ever not want to teach me. Come on. My jefe just told me I'm the American dream. Did they lose the memo? And I didn't understand the idea that I'm so different. And so Ida is embarrassed for me. And she's hoping she never gets to sit close to me. But I know the pathway to success is to follow Ida. So I sat next to Ida. We're learning words in English. But I realized early on what happens still today for many EL's children. You're immediately put into boxes and labels. I'll never forget the teacher when she said to Ida, you are now a blue jay. You will sit here and we will read in a circle. So I'm waiting. She turns around and says, and you are a blackbird. Now, I want you to go sit in the back. Here's some paper and crayons, and just draw. And I looked at Ida. Ida's cross-legged. She's listening to the teacher read out loud. I wanted to travel through Ida's stories. I wanted the teacher to be cognizant, aware that I had a story, I had a beginning. I could also imagine. I grew up with cuentos, with riddles. I grew up with this rich heritage. So why was it not legitimized through my lens. And that's the beginning of being in that tunnel, looking for that champion, in search of that one teacher that would rise like the phoenix and say, I see you. You know, Superintendent Arellano, a good friend, talked about a Swahili, about seeing you, about hearing you, about knowing you. Teachers, if we can do that first, our children are ready in their hearts, and you have the rest of it. It's in their minds. We can do it. Yes, we can do it. But it's got to be in you to see them, to hear them, to love them. And also to include loving their parents. I devote my life today to parents. And if you're a parent here at the Parent Institute, please stand. Padres, bienvenidos a CABE, bien recibidos. Esta es su casa. Ustedes son los primeros maestros. Ustedes son la clave. You are the first teachers. You are the ones that put that foundation in your children, and you belong at the table at CABE, just like you belong at every conference in the nation, because of your wisdom is why we stand here today. Well, you imagine I learned a little bit of English, and I love my teacher, and she said this, class, okay. Class, as I call your name, you will go to the board. You will show me that you can write your name. Ay, Dios mío. Tu nombre. ¿Qué mi nombre? Perfecto. And I'm waiting. I mean, this is Hollywood stuff. And she says, Consuelo, pique le brinco. Presente, maestra! Oh my God. She comes up to me, she said, come here. Le dije, órale, aquí vamos. And I go up to her, and she's a teacher. And in my family, you know, the ranking is very clear. It's God, familia, guess who's next? You. You're right next to the Virgen. Let's just be real. And don't ever try to call somebody's house. Because we, the students, will be on suicide watch. Imagine a mother like mine. Me acaba de hablar la maestra. Dale el alma a Dios que ahorita. You're like, did she tell you I'm a great student? So be careful who you call. Our life expectancy is in your hands. And so she said, come to the board. And then she told me, now, young lady, you're going to look at me. Y que me agarro. And that's the only thing I knew was, okay. And she said, listen, today your name is Connie. Let me translate language in my terms. Me vale. Le dije, mire, vieja, with all due respect. Le dije, yo no soy Connie de nadie. And of course, she didn't understand or didn't want to understand. I don't know what her deal was. She goes, come here. She grabbed my arm, took me to her desk. I don't know why they give teachers desks. I don't know. And she wrote this long note I mean, long. All I said was, me vale. And she wrote an essay. And then she stapled it, for real, teachers. She stapled it like if I could read. I have managed multi-billion-dollar projects for the United States Army. I've never had that breach of security. So off I go to see the principal. I have arrived. When you take a kid from the barrio and you want to mess with them, give them a stage. See what happens. They sat me in front of the school, the office. I took the moment. This is Hollywood. All the kids are like, órale, ¿qué pasó? Yo tengo palanca. I have access a la principal. ¿Eh? ¿Y tú? Nada. Okay, now the decision to suspend me, reform me, or call my parents. I learned the suicide number very quickly. But I love her. I love you, Mrs. Trevino. She got down to my eye level. And I love you, EL teachers. I love you. But this is amazing. She said, what is wrong with Connie? Dije, a la fregada, I'm learning the wrong English. Wow, that's gonna take forever. They don't talk like that in the television. So I thought, oh my God, what do I do? I looked at her, I panicked. I said, Miss, I don't know her. She said, oh my gosh, I'm using phonics, mijita. Huh? Pues you're definitely funny. She said, ay, Dios mío. And I knew she was bilingual. I said, Miss, ¿me permite? En mi idioma. She said, yes, Consuelo. Why don't you like Connie? ¿Por qué no? It's less letters. But she didn't know she was negotiating with a pro. I said, Mrs. Trevino, no me quite mi nombre. Es el nombre de mi madre. De por sí no me quiere. Y en mi barrio, my barrio was called El Rincón del Diablo. Do you get the picture? And I go into my barrio, translanguaging. Today you call me Connie. I won't live to go to second grade. You see, never ask a child to forfeit at no one's doorstep their true identity, because that is one with their family, that is one with their soul, that is one that can never, ever change. Me vale. And even if our Vietnamese brothers have a name, órale, teach me, porque yo no sé. I know your name was not just Mary. Let us learn. Let us be truly, we're valuing diversity. Let us appreciate and respect that our name is not just a name. There's a story in everybody's name. And it needs to be celebrated. Amen. Well, I won that. She said, está bien, está bien. I'm going to write to the teacher. try to be nice. So she wrote a long note again, and she gave it to me, and I said, Miss, what? Click, 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 click. You know what I love about Mrs. Trevino? She said, Mijita, I trust you. Quiero que aprendas, hija. Yo sé que tú puedes. You know, just those simple words. When they come into your classroom, they're scared, they're nervous. They might be dealing with things at home that's beyond their control. And all you need to do is look at them, see them, hear them, and then tell them, we're going to learn together. Because children can teach us, educators, more than we'll ever know from a book. Is that fair to say? They will teach us. They will guide us to places that we don't even imagine exist. They will sing the songs of their yesterday. They will dance in their traditional costumes and traditions. As one Vietnamese father trusted me in Nebraska, and he said, Miss Consuelo, I don't know anything. I said, oh, my brother, what did you do in Vietnam? He said, oh, I was a dragon maker. I said, this is your gift. He said, I make dragon for you. I said, thank you. And then the next day, he made this dragon, and I said, we will go to see the principal. Your son misses you in school. He's a prodigy. And we went to see the principal. And through the translator, I said, meet our genius father, a dragon maker from Vietnam. And the principal was so impressed. She said, do you think during multilingual days, he could help the students to celebrate the New Year's? I said, he would like that. And his son, the look on his face of finally being accepted and seen through his lens. Our parents come to us with so many gifts. It is up to every school district to make it a human right to bring these gifts into the classrooms and to allow that wisdom to be part of whatever other things you do. I remember a curandero coming from Texas to teach science and chemistry. I said, imagínese usted con todas sus hierbas. And the science and chemistry teacher began to do all of the chemical components. And the curandero, in his 83 years of healing the community, finally had his day. And he said, imagínese, señora, yo ni fui a la escuela, y estos chamacos están aprendiendo de mí. You see, when we honor those PhDs, they're PhDs in life. And so I survived elementary. I made it to middle school. And then I caught a disease. It's called boys. I was falling in love with one vato every 30 minutes. Definitely an equal opportunity lover. But it was because I needed to belong. And for many of our EL children, the idea of extracurricular activities, being in sports, being a part of a program, is difficult. Because for many, like me, my rituality was to go to school, walk the 3 miles, not in the snow, but to the Hamilton Hotel. When you're 12 years old, you're that maid in that hotel that the older maids say, que no te vean, child labor laws. But you're that little girl that's carrying the buckets for your mom. You're cleaning the toilets. I'm the daughter of a maid. She didn't clean toilets. She made them sparkle. I'm the daughter of a maid who taught me the highest standards of life. And she would tell me, hija, yo seré una criada, pero no cualquiera. I'm not just any maid. She said, always do a job so well done that even when no one's there, your work will speak for you. You see, we bring this discipline, we bring this passion, we bring this willingness to be of help, to serve. What we don't have is the access and the expectations that a system who doesn't see us through a deficit model. It is you in this room that will make all that difference. You see, there's 2 types of educators, mis manitos. There's the dream maker, and then there's the gatekeeper. And the dream maker never accepts excuses. The dream maker doesn't embrace the pobrecito syndrome. The dream maker sees geniuses waiting to happen. I always ask the question in national settings, what is the curriculum for gifted EL students? Are your children, are EL kids in gifted programs? Do we see beyond what the diagnostics said? Ladies and gentlemen, EL children are not just a data point on some graph. Our children come with brilliance, and yes, they can meet a talented and gifted curriculum. Yes, they can. Do you challenge them? Do you ask your system, why not? When you think about the realities that 1 of every 5 children in California is an EL child. So I thought about this idea of nopalitos. I go back to my barrio. When you're feeding 13 people, you have to be creative. You have to be innovative. And my mother would always make something out of so little. You know, it wasn't like IKEA. They have no idea. We're the true beginners of working outside the box. My mother would always have visitors because my dad invited everybody. And my mother would always get angry and she would say, Pedro, ¿cómo quieres que le dé comer a tanta gente? She was never really happy about that. She wasn't a social butterfly. And my dad would always say, calmado vieja, tú sabes cómo hacerlo. You know what to do. And my mother would take nopalitos and water and flour and eggs from the farm in the back there. And in these big charolas, my mother would go to work in her little chanclitas. And all the people that we didn't know would gather with their guitarras. My father would pray. And then the nopalitos would come, and the frijoles de la olla, and the tortillas made over the brasas. Who would have ever thought that my so-called poverty, that today nopalitos is a superfood? You see, we weren't poor. We were rich. Y como lo dijo mi padre, usted no es pobre, usted es rica, rica en valores, rica en tradiciones, rica en una fe tan grande que en este país, aunque no la quiera, usted será quien ama, porque usted no es pobre. And I learned from him this love for humanity, that whether or not I would be discriminated, marginalized, that he taught me to believe that what I brought with me had intrinsic value. My culture, my beliefs, and a faith in a God that I believe in. That all I needed was an opportunity. For the unaccompanied children, there's the additional challenge of trauma. For many of our families, it is trauma. That's why I respect districts like San Bernardino, Ontario, Long Beach, among those in California, San Bernardino, that allow parents to come and to heal, to recuperate, and to recover. Because when our parents are restored and given an opportunity without the shame or the blame, all of that is going to manifest itself in the classroom. Let us not just entertain parents. Let us transform their lives so that they can be the best that we know they already are. I believe that. And I know that. And so you have to have that vision of seeing parents and seeing children as equal partners in the greater question of how do we build success. So in high school, I realized I was limited. And I heard the one message I wished I had never heard. Attention all juniors. All academic students, go to the cafeteria. All others, go to the gym. Well, Ida, now she was like up to 5 tacos a day. I said, Aida, vamos? She said, oh my God, Consuelo, you're not academic. You don't have algebra. You don't have this. You don't have that. Dije, ¿cómo que no? She said, Chelo, don't you dare go. Well, guess what? And there were all these universities waiting for kids that had taken the SAT and all that. And they said, oh, there's a test called the ACT. Dije, órale, that's right up my alley. And I want to love you, sir. I don't mean to disparage you, but this is the truth. My counselor was the football coach. I want you to visualize. He was wearing those shorts 2 sizes too little. It was a school budget issue. And he said, with a clipboard, come here. Hey, buenas tardes, sir. I said, what are you doing here? Dije, pues entiendo que esto para lo que van a ir al college. He said, what's that? Wait a minute. He was laughing. He called another counselor. I'm not trying to create rumors, but she was all into the coach. You know, she had those little eyelashes that were like 747s. And she goes, yes, coach. And he said, ask her where she's going to go. And she goes, yes, why are you here? I said, buenas tardes, miss. Es como le dije, yo quiero ir al college. And they both started laughing. They were Hispanic. You see, in the world of diversity, it's not about the color or the background. It is about understanding that the human being deserves mutual respect and dignity. It is about believing that all children matter, and that in the world of karma, it comes back. Well, I want to thank my teacher, Mr. Cooper, for changing my life. It is because of him and visiting my family that he gave me the true access to language. So I stand before you, not as that pobrecita mexicana, but as a child who has raised her hand to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign or domestic. I am the American dream. Please, you are too. Go make more dreams and be a dream maker. Gracias.